What happens when you put two culture critics from national television, one Latino and one Black, in front of a microphone? You get the Brown and Black Podcast.
Hey everyone, I'm Jack Rico.
And I'm Mike Sargent.
And in a time where voices of color are mostly absent from the media,
Brown and Black intends to speak candidly about the controversial issues that affect us.
we also have some great guests on the show. I mean, we've had John Leguizamo, George Lopez,
Spike Lee, Harvey Mason Jr.
But not only that, Mike, we're really all about breaking down race in pop culture so that our creators of color can be on the screen.
Brown and Black is about the intersection between race and pop culture. We're just waiting for you to listen.
Listen to Brown and Black on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, this is DJ.
And this is Ish.
And this is Season 5 of Pero Let Me Tell You.
We'll get there.
Well, on that note, everybody, welcome to episode 224 of Pero Let Me Tell You. We made it through another week. How is everyone? We hope you're good. So today, this is DJ here. Ish is not here. Ish is enjoying New York SuperCon or Comic-Con without me. Mind you, it was a podcast event, but here I am. But because Ish is not here, we have somebody who's like really cool and really special to the podcast, Nery Saenz, who is one of the best comedians around, especially down here, and he's part of the Geek Bro Network. And you're a host of what, like 20 different podcasts of your own?
About 22.
Right. You know what I was thinking? Like, so we've been in a Ish and I have been together in several Geekmore Geekmore episodes.
Right.
We've been individually. I've been on Shiver. David's co-hosted our podcast. Even Vanessa has been on our podcast.
My wife.
Yeah. Stephanie has co-hosted with us, but you have actually never co-hosted with us.
No. I've never been asked.
Well, that's not the way I intended that to go.
That's no.
So welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Oh yeah. So I'm here recording at your studio.
Right.
And you being a proud Nika, where's the fried cheese?
Well, I am on this health kick for the last,
you look awesome.
Thank you. But for the last year and a half, I've been staying away from all types of fun food.
Describe fun.
Well, will you find queso frito or delicious food is just like been very.
Because I think you said you were like not having any like refined sugars or something.
So
like that?
for 13 months, the first 13 months, I didn't have any refined sugar or any refined carbs at all. I didn't actually have any sugar at all. Period. The only sugar that I would allow myself is like a couple packets of Splenda in my coffee, in my black coffee. Then that would be the equivalent of my. Anything else, I wouldn't even have fruits. I wouldn't have any natural sugars, no sugar at all, for 13 months. Now I've eased up a little bit in that, in the sense of like I had a banana today and I didn't, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but other than that, I'm still off of the sugar and mostly off of the carbs in general. But yeah.
Wow.
So I could still have, technically, I've had queso frito in the last year. But that, you know what I mean? Because that's just all fat. So I'm like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to hold off on that.
So it's funny. I'm glad we started with queso frito because you wouldn't enjoy this.
Which used to be my PlayStation Network name, by the way.
Queso frito.
Queso frito.
Well, of course.
Yeah. And then it got hijacked. And I don't know what happened.
You know what? I feel that with the queso frito, with like Nicas and queso frito, I feel it's not played out. Like, every Cuban is like croqueta king, croqueta queen, croqueta 305. But I feel queso frito is not played out yet.
Well, it's funny to me because I was just having this conversation with Mario Ramil, good friend of mine, super funny comic.
Oh, Mario's awesome.
He was under the understanding that when I used the word fritanga, he thought fritanga meant queso frito.
I'm so happy you said that because I actually wanted to bring up fritanga.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks ago, I was explaining to a friend of mine, a white friend of mine, who, like, I was talking to him about, like, food culture in Miami. And I'm like, oh, and then there's fritanga.
Right.
And then, first of all,
yeah.
the name,
Yeah.
like, the name. And I'm like, oh, there's fritanga. And, like, I was like, how do I explain fritanga?
Brother,
right?
I've had problems explaining fritanga because to me that's just food.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then people are like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "It's the name that it's basically the way I've throughout explaining it as much as I have."
So how would you explain it to the general populace?
I would explain it by saying it's street food, typical Nicaraguan street food.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I would explain it. But it's in a brick and mortar.
Right, but it consists of like
It consists of carne asada. We don't have bistec. We have carne asada. We have, which is charbroiled beef, but it's prepared in a different format than, for example, other cultures such as Cuban people do it in very thin sliced. We don't do thin slice. We don't do anything thin. No. There's nothing thin about Nicaragua. We're all fat. The food's fat. The slices are cut fat. So and then it's like all of our home cooking. It's everything that's like the home cooking, the street food. We put that in the brick and mortar. So when it's funny because I was having this conversation with Carlos. I don't know if you've ever had Carlos on the show. Carlos, the comedian in Miami, that he just actually got Miami the best comedian in Miami last year. He and Mario were into this conversation. Like, yeah, I don't like fritanga. And I couldn't understand those words because that to me is like saying you don't like Chinese food. I'm like, you don't like any Chinese food? Like, there's nothing you like about it? And he was like, nah, I'm not a big cheese guy. And I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Like, so, but there's other stuff. And he's like, what? No, that's what fritanga is. It's the queso frito. Is that cheese
he
stuff.
He thought it was just like a name for a queso frito.
Correct. And I was like, no. And I gave him the equivalent of the Chinese food. I'm like, that's like saying I don't like Chinese food because I don't like egg rolls.
Right.
Like imagine saying that.
Or Chinese food is only fried rice.
Right. Like, so imagine saying that. And he's like, oh, and like, what is? So I had to explain it to them then. But
you
it's
need
basically
to take them to a fritanga.
Yeah, that's what. And then so I was like, this is what this is. And so I, kind of explained it's all different. It's a lot. It's a huge variety of food. What the most popular plate would be, what most people who are not from Nicaragua would understand fritanga to be, is a plate of fried rice and beans. I say fried because most people don't understand that gallo pinto is fried. But it's rice and beans with not black beans like Cuban people, or it's with red beans.
Right.
So it's red beans and rice, and then we cook that together, and then we fry it because why not?
Of course.
Because why? How do we make ourselves fatter? Oh, that's right. We fry it, and then charbroiled beef, like I talked about, and then either the sweet plantains, the fried sweet plantains, or the plantain chips.
My favorite thing, which is it's like totally Nica, is the jalapeno sauce.
Right.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That is like of the gods.
Yeah.
It's so funny because
the white sauce.
I have a very very good friend that she's Nica as well, and
to the general people, when you say Nica, that's the term that people who are from Nicaragua in the set use to speak to each other. So when you say, oh, you're Mexican or you're Cuban, we say Nica because the word Nicaraguan is too long. And if you're saying this to somebody who's not Hispanic,
oh, forget it.
You gotta clarify the CA. You gotta hit that CA real hard, man. You gotta say Nica because if you you don't want people thinking that you said something completely different. Like, no, that's not the N word I was using, man.
That conversation is gonna go south very quickly.
Yeah, you gotta hit that CA.
It's funny because I was telling her the other day because I freaking love like Los Rancho and Novillo, and
my uncle used to work at Novillo when I was a kid. He used to be a waiter, one of the head waiters there. And we would go there all the time. My dad would go there and hang out with his brother. Yeah. And we would just like be there, and they would just keep feeding us food, and just keep the food.
What I was telling her was that I was like, shit, I need to find a way of making this a meme because when you go to these restaurants, like I'm not a big bean person, but gallo pinto, shit, like give me it by the pound. Yeah. And I always say in these restaurants when they bring you the platter with the rice and they start serving it to you. Yeah. I'm like that awkward moment when you look at the waiter and you're like, keep going.
No.
You know, like when they start slowing down.
Yeah.
It's
And you look up and you're like, I'm with you, buddy. I haven't fallen asleep. You keep going. Yeah. Don't stop.
Like that awkward moment when the waiter starts slowing down. Everybody who's been to these restaurants knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That you're like, you're not stopping anytime soon, sir.
My mom used to say all the time, even at the fritanga, they give you like styrofoam plates, but they're deep styrofoam dishes.
Yeah.
And my mom used to say she used to mock these ladies that will give you the gallo pinto, that will serve you the rice and beans. And my mom would say, like, this lady's falling asleep as she's giving you, like, that's how much rice she's giving you. So she's falling asleep as she's like, durmiendo. And I was like, all right, yeah. But yeah, that's a lot of our food.
And I think another beauty of fritanga is that, I mean, I know prices have gone up and everything. You could get, like 20 pounds of food for like nothing almost.
But here's the thing. It's no longer that anymore. Like because and I hate to be that, in my day, but I remember getting a serving of food for $3.25.
Yeah.
And I remember when I went to $3.50. I remember when I went to $4.25, and I remember when I went to $5.75. And now it's like at $13.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean, yes, it's a lot from where it started, but it's super cheap.
You're saying $13 for, like, that's like a casual dining restaurant, where this wasn't a casual dining restaurant.
It depends. Porque, oye, mira, for example, Subway. Have you gone Subway recently?
No.
Dude, Subway. There you go, the diet. Like, my kid in Subway.
Have you been to Carbs lately? No, I have not been to Carbs. I'm not big into Carbs.
My kid loves Subway.
Subway's fantastic. Those cookies are unbeatable.
I'll tell you something about Subway now. My kid, he likes a 6-inch ham and cheese sub with nothing on it. Like no mayo, no mustard, just cheese. It's like bread, ham, cheese, and nothing.
Right.
And dude, that 6 inch is like $6. I'm like, what happened to the $5 footlongs?
Yeah, it no longer exists, huh? The $5 footlong doesn't come up anymore.
You know the thing about Subway, and every time we say stuff like this on the show, Ishmael's like, we're losing the sponsorship. But we weren't going to get the sponsorship from Subway anymore. Yeah. I think Subway...
You get it from Subway.
So, sort of sucks, but sometimes I crave Subway.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be Subway.
It's comfort food, man. Yeah. Sometimes you're like, comfort food is not great food, but you're like, it's just like a cheesy movie, right? Yeah. Like sometimes we all have that word. I refuse to call them guilty pleasures, because I don't feel guilty for liking what I like. But there are movies that I can acknowledge, this is not a good movie, but man, I love this movie.
Yeah.
I love it. Like, whatever movie, it's just like, oh, this is such a bad movie. Insert any Jean-Claude Van Damme movie here. I love every Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, but I can acknowledge this is not.
It's funny you say that, because I remember whatever episode I was on of Mount Geekmore with you guys. This was a while ago. I think it was pre-COVID. That's how we say it now. It was pre-COVID.
Yeah,
that was BC.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
before COVID.
That's a thing.
That went on and on about, I forget which Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, and I was thinking to myself, like, dude, this guy's like talking about this movie like if it was like an Oscar worthy.
Correct. I talk about Van Damme movies like you talk about 007 movies.
Yeah.
That's how we are. We're like, I acknowledge, like, I've even gotten to the point on Geekmore, and again, we took, for the listeners, it's called Mount Geekmore, and we took a break this year because my scheduling has been nuts. We're going to start again soon, I promise. But it got to the point on Geekmore that I would literally catch myself and check myself and say, look, you guys know how much I love this movie. You guys know how much I love Van Damme. Just go back and listen to it. Like, I'm not gonna bore you again with the same shit. Like, it's just it's gone on and on and on. Where I'm like, I could do this, because I'll talk about The Rock, I'll talk about Van Damme for days. But you've heard this, right? Like, to the listener, you've heard this. Yeah. So yeah. But I love those movies, man. I love those.
It's funny you say that. It's a guilty pleasure, but it's like you like it. So what? Yeah. Like I feel that way too. It's like a lot of these movies, they may not be great movies in terms of,
they're
critical.
Food, but they're comfort.
Yeah, but it's like, if masses of people enjoy it for what it is, then what the hell?
Well, this is my argument, and people, whenever this comes up, people go, well, Nickelback, right? People love shitting on Nickelback, and I'm like, they're a multi-platinum selling band.
Yeah.
I can't be I only bought one CD. There's no way I bought 1 million copies of this album. Yeah. So somewhere along, someone's lying. Someone is lying. Like, there's no way. The amount of memes and the amount of internet jokes that are made at Nickelback's expense.
That's kind of like back in the day, remember when the Spice Girls were really in?
Yes.
That the Spice Girls were like the world's highest selling band.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, I hate the Spice Girls. And I'm like, this is like freaking like crack. Like,
yeah.
everybody's doing it, but nobody says they do it.
Well,
like who's buying the records?
See, but here's the thing with the Spice Girls. Every girl would outwardly say, I love Spice Girls.
Right.
And then at that age, I remember I was super young, the boys would be like, Spice Girls, that's for girls, blah, 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 right? We're all dumb. But at least girls would acknowledge. I've never met somebody else who goes, oh man, I love Nickelback. I bought 2 of their albums. Like nobody, but they sell millions. Like so, it's
they sold out stadiums.
Yeah, somebody's lying, bro.
Yeah.
All these internet jokes.
You know what I think? With the thing about Nickelback is like, what's his name? The lead singer.
I don't even know.
Maybe he's not the coolest looking guy.
None of them are. None of them are. Like, have you seen the people who are in the band Train?
Yeah.
None of them look cool.
But you know what? Seriously, like that's real. Like the definition of white people music. Like them, Creed. You remember Creed?
Oh my, of course. Yeah, yeah. Creed. Like here's the thing. It's that '90s rock.
Yeah.
Style of rock where it's a friend of mine once said it's like the introduction to rock. Like these are like the bands that you listen to, and I feel like that person, I feel like that stoner who's like, the gateway drug is pot. So you smoke weed, and then I never moved on to anything harder. Like that's how I feel like I got into the gateway of like of rock music, but I never left. I just stayed there.
Oh no!
I'm like, I just stayed there.
You're
I'm
like in purgatory.
Yeah, I'm just like, people are like, do you like AC/DC? No. But I love Train. Like I don't know,
like
man.
Train to me, it's like middle-aged Karen in like Wisconsin jamming to her car.
And you are absolutely correct. Here's the thing, though. I still love that music. I do. I was like, this song is amazing. Savage Garden, hit me up, man. I'm in. So,
what was it? The Chicky Cherry Cola.
I
Want You.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. Now that you're saying Savage Garden, and listeners, you probably remember this. You remember the video to that song? That song was like a huge hit. Huge hit.
Massive.
I remember that years ago. It was like in the early 2000s, so it wasn't so many years after that song had come out. They did like a ranking on MTV of like the worst video ever, and whatever it was, they were never going to air it on MTV. Right. And that video was like the worst.
Really?
I Want You by Savage Garden.
Yeah. I mean, I don't doubt it. I don't even remember the video. So, but
it was bad.
But it was bad. But listen to the song. It couldn't be a good video. Like it'd be like there's a few songs where they were bad, but the video was good. Yeah. But not many. Like it usually it goes hand in hand.
Because you need the record company support and and you need the money.
Yeah. And then who else was the other people? Step back, hey you. Step back from the ledge, my friend. I'm on off. I have no pitch, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
Babe, who was that?
You know who I didn't like either from that time was Matchbox 20.
Matchbox 20 was.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I like Matchbox 20 too.
The one you're talking about is the people that sing.
Who? Third Eye Blind.
Semi-Charm Kind of Life.
Semi-Charm Kind of Life, yeah.
Okay, that song's good.
But again, all of these are like, even if you say like this song sucked, they're like, yeah, but I fucking loved it. Like I just like I'm not gonna die on any hill. Like I'm not gonna fight anybody for Matchbox 20, but I will say I enjoyed the shit out of that music for 10 plus years.
I actually like what you said, that it was kind of like your gateway to like rock music.
Yeah.
But you kind of got stuck.
I just got stuck there. It's like that guy who only does pot. He's like, you never did coke? Nope. Just stayed a pot, man. Like that's all I did. I just stayed in the gateway. I just stayed there. I'm like, that's it.
I'm good with this. I'm happy with this. Mm-hmm. We're good. So yeah, I think that the lesson from all of this is that Fritanga needs to open up in the Midwest.
Oh my God, Fritanga doesn't even exist on the West Coast, and there's a huge Nicaraguan population on the West Coast. Yeah. I'm talking about massive. San Francisco, San Diego. Like there's a massive amount of Nicaraguan population there, so much so that they're following me on Instagram, and I get so many people, when are you going to come to San Francisco, when you come to San Diego, when you come to the West Coast, and I've had conversations with them, and like when I'll post something about Fritanga, and they'll be like, man, I miss Miami because of that. I'm like, wait, you guys don't have Fritanga there? Like, nah, we have Nica food, but it's not the same. They don't have a dedicated thing. And San Francisco, if anybody's ever been to San Francisco, per capita, they have more restaurants per capita than any other city in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's like every other, like when you go to San Francisco, like every other door is a restaurant. Like restaurant, and then different kinds of restaurants or whatever, but it's like restaurant. Right. But they don't have they don't have a Fritanga, and then they don't have a proper whatever.
Dude, now that you're saying San Francisco, I just thought about like when everybody goes to California, the first thing they do is go to In-N-Out Burgers.
Correct. It's the most overrated. Did you find them overrated?
I remember the very first time I had In-N-Out Burgers because I remember it's like a thing. It's like,
Right.
okay, you got off the plane.
I made a U-turn.
Go to In-N-Out Burgers.
I had a driver before Uber. I went there. The first time I went to LA, Michael Yo had just met me. Right?
Oh, nice.
Michael Yo had just started doing stand-up. I opened for him. I actually introduced him to on the very first time he ever stepped on to do comedy here in Fort Lauderdale. And I introduced him. We became friendly, like hi, bye, but he was really cool, the manager of the Improv. And then he was putting together a showcase 6 months later in LA. And he said, I want to get somebody from Miami. Who would you recommend? And the Improv manager, super nice, was like, absolutely, Nery. Hands down, you got to bring that guy.
Nice.
Michael was super nice. Flew me out there, paid for my flight, right? Paid for my, and then he told me, you'll stay with me, so you don't have to pay for a hotel or anything.
Yeah.
I get to the hotel, only one of 2 times that I have somebody waiting for me at the airport with my name on a sign.
You know you
right?
made it, right?
Yeah. And this is pre-Uber, so this was a big
Right.
deal because this wasn't like nowadays where you could like, oh, just go pick them up.
Yeah.
And so I remember that guy was there, and I'm like going to Michael Yo's house at the time, and I'm like, hey, where's the In-N-Out Burger? He's like, oh, man, we just missed it like 5 miles back. And I'm like, is there another one on the way there? And he goes, no. I go, can we go? I literally did a U-turn.
My name was on a sign. Let's go
Yeah,
back.
and we literally did a U-turn. He's like, all right. And like, it was like a detour where you had to go all the way back and whatever. And it was so not worth it. I was like, this is.
I've been to California a bunch of times, and every time I go to In-N-Out, and I always like want to give it another chance. And it's not that it's bad. Like I'm not saying it's bad. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
That's the word. It's fine.
Yeah, but people talk about it like it's like the best burger you'll ever have.
I think it's as good as Five Guys.
Oh, I think Five Guys is better.
And I was gonna say, if you want to say Five Guys is better, fine.
More flavorful.
It's fine, but to me, I'm not gonna die on that hill. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna have, but I will die on the hill of In-N-Out is not better than Five Guys. It's maybe
It's not well, no,
maybe as good, but not better.
What the East Coast West Coast rivalry is between In-N-Out and Shake Shack, and to me, Shake Shack is pretty. It's up there.
I think Five Guys is better than Shake Shack. My opinion.
Okay, what I love from Shake Shack are the fries and the cheese. Like,
Okay,
oh.
I can see that. And here's and
the custard.
I will be honest. I didn't know about this when I had In-N-Out. I had In-N-Out twice that week, and I didn't know about this. I didn't know about Animal Style. So I did not know that because it wasn't on the menu. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's a secret menu.
I didn't know about off-menu items. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing with them.
Which I was disappointed in myself because I was super fat then, and I was like, "How am I a fat guy?" And I don't know about off-menu shit. So I wish I would have known. So I feel like I'm grading I'm grading In-N-Out incompletely because I haven't had their full.
I've had off menu stuff, and again, it's good, but like as you said, I wouldn't die on that hill.
Yeah.
it. I you know what I prefer in terms of chains out there. I prefer Jack in the Box.
Jack in the Box is great.
Sourdough Jack.
Oh, Jack in the Box is great. Their breakfast menu is amazing too. And I also prefer my favorite fast food burger is Whataburger.
In Texas? You know, I've never had Whataburger.
It's so good, man. It's so good. It's like a flame broiled, so it's kind of like a Whopper type of deal. But their spicy mayo.
Ooh,
and I'm not
nice.
even a spicy guy.
Yeah.
I don't like spicy food, but their spicy mayo is good. Bro.
Nice.
Yeah,
And here we are talking about all this junk food that
Again, here's a problem that I have now. So first, my wife was like, "You can't talk about that. You're not fat anymore." First of all, I'm still fat. I'm just not as fat as I was. I'm still fat. I'm still plenty fat. I'm just not the oh my god, he's gonna die any minute now fat that I was. 1 and 2, I was fat for 39 plus years. Like, I think that fact that I just turned 41, it's been a year and a half. I think I could still, so it feels weird talking about, like, I have this conversation with other friends of mine who are really big, and they're like, oh, fuck, what do you know about burgers? I'm like, oh, well, you think my 39-year resume doesn't speak for it? Like, I'm somehow not okay to speak about this anymore?
Yeah.
But no, it's great.
Yeah. No, well, congratulations. I mean, you look great.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's funny that now that we're talking about food, when I lived in the Midwest, and this is like a very South Florida thing, so our listeners that are from South Florida would appreciate this. When I lived up in the Midwest, you know what I missed the most? Chicken Kitchen.
Chicken Kitchen.
I freaking craved Chicken Kitchen. I'm like, can somebody please
Legit.
send me
They're legit.
that honey, like mustard curry? Like,
Yeah.
please.
Oh yeah.
Please.
Yeah,
And you know what? I've gotten better about the mustard curry because I used to have a soup. Like, my ratio and sauce was off.
So you know what I used to do is I used to get that curry sauce and I used to get the beans and just get an order of beans, or even go to Pollo Tropical and get the beans
And add the curry
and
sauce.
then add the curry sauce, and that's it. That was my meal. And add like 2 curry sauces, who am I lying? 3 curry sauces, and then the bean, and that was my meal. It was just, and it was like, so, you know, with that said, you know that I've been very, what's that word you used today, babe? Regular. Very regular.
very regular.
Yeah.
Your fiber intake was on point.
3 curry with a boatload of beans. Yeah, I've been very regular. That's I might as well have eaten that sitting on the toilet, because that was coming right back out. Man. That wasn't. Yeah. It's got the curry sauce. I talk about this all the time. My friend and I used to talk about this all the time. We used to talk about the genius of Chicken Kitchen and Chicken Grill. By the way, you know they used to be a thing.
The Chicken Grill. Are Chicken Grills still around?
Yes.
I used to go to the one in front of FIU all the time.
There's a few Chicken Grills. Yeah. So my friend and I used to talk about the genius of this, because it's literally the cheapest meal to make. If you're a restaurant owner and you want to get a model for your restaurant, and as far as how much money you're gonna make and how much money you're gonna spend, you're literally cooking chicken and rice. Those are the cheapest ingredients on the planet. Like, you're not like in America, for you to get food that's cheaper than rice and food that's cheaper than chicken, like there's no protein that's cheaper than chicken.
And in the curry sauce, the main ingredient is mayo.
Yeah, the main ingredient is mayo, and then you add sadness and depression, and then you just make delicious sauce. That's amazing.
I remember they don't have it anymore. Remember in Chicken Kitchen when they had the pump? That you could pump.
Oh, they don't have
sauce?
it anymore?
No, after
COVID.
So now it's after COVID, and now that things are more expensive, they don't do it. Oh, I just used to be like, remember that awkward moment with in Rancho? This would be the awkward moment. I'm like, shit, I put so much curry sauce on this. Yeah. It's a soup at this point. But no.
Nobody's judging you for that. Good for you.
Good
for you.
It's like
I would take the whole tub and be like, you guys are out. You guys are out. Fill it back up, bitches.
Oh yeah. So we talk about some current events here, and I kind of wanted to bring up something that happened this week. So this week, or for the past 2 weeks, it's been Paris Fashion Week.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't follow Paris Fashion Week?
Man, are you kidding me? Yeah.
I mean,
anybody who's taken one look at me
knows that
I am. Yeah, absolutely.
Paris Fashion Week. But anyway, Kanye West, or Ye,
right,
presented his, I guess, collection for 2023 of his line, and he came out, like, a lot of the collection has the logo, and he came out with Candace Owens with a logo that says "White Lives Matter."
Of course,
you saw this.
Yes,
you saw the image.
Yes, yeah.
So, what do we think about him? Like, do we think that he's? What do you think about this?
Well, first of all, it's not. This is not even a thought. This is been talked about. He is on he should be on medication, right? What was it, schizophrenia or whatever it was? Was it?
There's something going on.
Yeah, there was bipolar. That was that Kim said that he's bipolar and that he's on medication, and then he later on, God knows how long later, said that he's off the medication, doesn't like the way it makes him feel, or whatever. So there's actual mental things there. So I don't want to. So what I'm about to say, I don't want to say in light of his mental.
I totally agree. I think there's the mind. There's a
screw loose, man.
There's a sick mind there.
Yeah,
I don't mean sick mind as a pervert. I mean sick mind as like he does have some sort of mental illness.
Well, again, Kim, his ex-wife, said so. Like, this isn't even hearsay. This is what that's what she said. I will say, with that said, I'm just like, it's all, he is, one, brilliant with music, and two, the amount of propaganda that he's just, this is all just to sell, to make noise, to make buzz. It was the same thing he did 15 years ago when he did 50 Cent, when him and 50 Cent released albums on the same day, and and whoever sells the least albums in the opening week retires from music. Like, that was bullshit. Like, but everybody bought into it or whatever. It was just fun. But it's just escalated since then. The fucking Trump, the Trump hat that he wears and all this shit there, and the babbling that he did at the White House, where he babbled so much that the fucking president at the time who was known for babbling was like, Jesus Christ, this fucking guy babbles a lot. So
he then said slavery was a choice.
he said slavery was a choice. He talked about Rosa Parks being, like all of this shit is just to get attention. It's all just to get attention. He's the prime example of he follows the rule of thumb of no publicity is bad publicity. And that's what he's doing now. Like white lives, that hasn't even been a thing. Like Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, that whole thing has the franticness and the popularity of that, the trendiness of that hasn't been trending for over a year. So for him to pull that out now, it's like you're just wanting something for people to talk to you about. And it's working.
Yeah, here we are talking
Aquí
about
estamos in Miami, and dos gente que we have no idea about Paris fucking, and then we're here talking about it. So let's be real. It's working, but do I believe he believes that shit? Maybe, but he's fucking, he's,
I have like I'm there with you in everything that you said, but I have like two sides of it because on the one hand, I want to be super critical of it and being like, dude, I understand being controversial, but I think that you should have like a moral compass of okay, this is way too much. There's a line you shouldn't cross. Like you could say shit and do shit and, be provocative and be controversial, but there's just certain things that you don't do. But then on the other hand, I try to like give him some grace because esa cabeza, ahí hay algo en esa cabeza.
No, la cosa es que no hay nada.
No hay nada. Yeah, there's something going on there.
I believe that I'm just tired of his bullshit type of thing, and I'm like, you're just full of shit. I see through you now. It's kind of like if you grew up watching wrestling, and you're like, I'm a huge fan of wrestling, and then you get to a certain age where you go, oh, you're full of shit. This ain't real. Like, you know what I mean? There's an age. Nowadays it's different. Lo que están oyendo esto, like if you're in the age now, you grew up knowing that it's fake or knowing that it's scripted. We grew up in the 80s and we thought that was life, bro. We thought that was real for us.
The Hulk Hogan years, I thought was real.
Correct.
But then the second with like The Rock,
the Attitude Era,
the Attitude 90s, that
you already knew.
Yeah,
you already knew.
But
we were already. How old are you now, Deej?
I'm a little older than you.
Okay, so I just turned 41 a couple weeks ago, and the Attitude Era was when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. That was the best era, right? 17, 18, 19. At 17, 18, 19 years old, you already knew.
Yeah.
But the children then didn't know yet. The children, if you're 8, 9 years old during the Attitude Era, you didn't know it was fake.
You thought Stephanie McMahon,
right? No, you thought
Triple H really
correct. If you're 8, 9 years old right now, it's scripted. You know
what's
scripted.
funny saying this? Did you watch Friends?
Of course, yeah.
So
I'm a bigger fan of Friends than my wife is.
So it's funny because I saw Friends when Friends started. I was like, I think a middle school or high school, just started high school. And I remember, Friends was one of these shows that the moment it started, it was popular, right? It got more popular, but it started off with a bang. Correct, it was very popular. And I saw it then. And then, like, in reruns, I realized that I'm like, shit, like, why didn't I watch, like, season, I don't know, 3, 4, and 5 of Friends? Right. Like, I hadn't put 2 and 2 together, and I'm like, oh, because Friends was on Thursdays, and Thursdays was SmackDown.
Yeah, right. And you're like, yeah, I'm not.
And that was like seasons 3, 4, and 5 of Friends were like 98, 99, 2000, like that era, that time. That's when, it was like the best. And I'm like, oh, this is why I didn't watch Friends these 3 seasons.
That's why I didn't watch the last 3 seasons of Dawson's Creek. Because I was like,
it's
over here, bro.
Because my kid is like into The Rock, the actor, Dwayne Johnson. He's all about Dwayne Johnson. Of course. And then he tells me, like,
good taste.
He's like, you've met The Rock? And I'm like, well, I haven't met him in person, but I had ringside seats twice and had a poster that said Jabroni. Right. So I guess you could say I've been close enough to The Rock.
I mean, I saw him in WrestleMania. I was there in WrestleMania in Miami when he wrestled John Cena. I mean, is that a thing?
Of course.
No, it's funny because most people that I know down here in Miami have met The Rock.
Yeah, I feel everybody's bumped into The Rock somewhere.
But like I haven't.
It's like at a Walgreens.
I'm like the hugest fucking fan of The Rock and have been since 97, 98, 99, and I'm one of the people, and everybody else I know, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not a fan of, he was a wrestler, right? I'm like, oh, fuck you, man.
Like,
you could,
and a football player. Like,
I'm like, all right, whatever. But I don't know. So I think, the whole thing with Kanye is like, I see your facade now. Like now, it's no longer, I can't even, like when him and 50 were doing the let's see who sells more records, and the loser quits music. I was like, even though I kind of knew in the back of my head this is bullshit, I'm like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
I still took it for entertainment. And now I'm like, oh, I just see this is a marketing ploy. You're full of shit
but
now.
that, what you're talking about, that's like, okay, that's the kind of fun bullshit.
Right.
Nobody's getting hurt here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. And so now when he does this, because I feel like since then he just had to, every time it's just had to up his ante.
I mean, he's saying some really awful things, and the fact that he did it with Candace Owens, I think, adds insult to injury. But it's so disappointing because, I mean, I hate to like give it to him because he is full of shit, but like the guy is a genius.
Yeah, of course.
He really is.
Musically, he's a genius.
He is.
I will never accept the fact that he knows shit about fashion. His clothes to me look gross. And again, this is coming from a guy who's a t-shirt and jeans guy. Yeah. I'm very boring. I do not claim to be a fashionista of any kind. I don't care. I mean, I do subscribe to Vogue, so take that as you. I mean, whatever. But I will not claim to be a fashionista. But his clothes to me look like raggedy ass.
But you know what? But his clothes, it's not my aesthetic either. But his clothes have had an influence, like a trickle down effect,
right,
in other lines and in just general clothing.
Sure.
So even though I agree, I don't like it.
Yeah,
either,
it's not my bag.
But
I will say his music is fire.
No,
like
it is.
I can't even argue his music.
It is.
Like,
it is. Fire. It is, and it's funny because last year he had a similar kind of battle with Drake.
Right.
When Certified Lover Boy came out with Drake and his album Donda, and I got Kanye's album first because it's like the guy is. Musically, he's a genius, but
I'm just tired of his bullshit. Like, it's like I'm just tired of that. I'm like, but I do agree. I for one, as a comedian, I don't think that there's anything that's off topic. I don't care. I can make a joke. I feel as if anybody who's making a joke could make a joke. I honestly feel now, is every topic for everybody? No. Mm-hmm. But I feel like people are like, oh, you can't talk about that, it's too soon. I don't believe in that bullshit. Mm-hmm. I believe in there's no too soon. I give the example all the time to my friends who are like, oh, you can't make a joke about this guy. He just died. I'm like, is he going to be less dead in a year? Like, I don't understand. How is that joke going to be any different? Now, if you personally knew the person, I get it. Maybe, hey, don't do that joke to that person. But like, if a celebrity dies, like, oh, they just died. I'm like, yeah, but they're going to be dead in a year. Why would the joke be any funnier in a year? So that's my thing about comedy. But the thing with Kanye is he's not a comedian. And he's not trying to be funny. No. So that's my whole thing is like, I don't want to censor you because I don't believe in censorship as a performer myself. But at the same time, it's like the shit that you're saying is just awful, nasty shit.
I don't think it's even censorship. I think it's again, a moral compass and responsibility.
Right.
Because there's some statements that you say that I think that maybe, okay, people will be like, oh shit, he shouldn't have said that.
Right.
But then there's other statements that have like a really like big implication.
Right.
And especially now that we live in such divisive times, like you making statements like that, it's not something that people are going to be like, oh, shocked, and then 2 seconds later they're going to get over it. But so listen, I'm really glad that you mentioned the comedy because one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on as co-host and finally ask you is because you are a comedian. Like, you are a legit comedian. You are a professional. This is what you do for a living.
Right.
Because a lot of people say they're comedians, but all they have is an Instagram.
But what's funny? So I was having this conversation. I went to speaking of the aforementioned Mario Mill. He called me last Monday. He's like, "Hey, you want to go you want to go hang out?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I didn't know we were going to an open mic. Not that it would have mattered anyways, but he just said, "You want to go hang out?" I'm like, "Sure." He goes, "Let's go hang out here," and he gives me an address. I'm like, "All right." And I
so
show
you got hanging out like, "Oh, we're gonna go eat something."
We're gonna go hang out. And so it was an open mic, which again, not that it would have made a difference. I just didn't know. So we get there, had a great time, by the way. But I'm hanging out talking to other comedians, and they just started. I've been doing it 19 years. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about they've been doing it for 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. And I'm talking to them, and we're all hanging out, having a good time. And I asked one of the girls who'd been doing it for 6 months, I said, "Do you call yourself a comedian yet?" And she goes, "No." I go, "Okay." And she goes, "How do you know that?" And I go, "Because," and I said, "Because when I started, it took me a year and 10 months to call myself a comedian. Mm. It took me maybe even 2 years where I wouldn't call myself a comedian.
What do you think was that made you officially feel like, okay, I'm a comedian?
When I consistently was giving stage time, was getting paid. The paid is the least of it, but I was consistently getting stage time, and I was consistently doing well on stage, where it was becoming less and less surprising that I did well. Mm-hmm. So you know
you
what I
were
mean?
like, oh shit, they
Yeah,
laughed.
yeah, exactly. Oh man, that actually didn't. I didn't bomb. Oh, okay, I didn't. And when you consistently do that, more so than when it becomes more surprising that it was not a good set than when it was a good set, then I was like, oh, I feel. And I could recall, and I was having the story on Monday, telling the story to the new comics coming up. I said I could distinctively recall my friends introducing me, saying, "Oh, here's my friend Nery. He's a comedian." And I would say, "Bro, stop. I'm not. I'm not there yet. I've only done open mics. I'm an open micer, and I've said things like, "Oh, I've only been on stage 18 times." I remember counting. There was a point in time where I would count how many times I had been on stage in total. I'm like, I've only been on stage 12 times. I've only been on stage 19 times. I literally keep a count of how many times I've been on stage this year, and it's been like over 200 times already. Right. So like, it's not like, you know what I mean? Just to give a comparison numbers. So it took me a long time for me to call myself a comedian. And there are guys who are not like that. There are guys who they step on stage one time, they do 5 minutes on stage at an open mic in front of 90 people, 90 of their friends and family, and they go, "I'm a comedian." And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, to each his own.
That's why I asked you that, because especially now with like social media, you know, you post some content, some reels, whatever, you know, they're funny, right? But it's like, are you a comedian?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like, define comedian.
Okay, so and don't say, this is the way I'm going to say. There was a time when viral videos were coming out and that people were doing what is now considered skits or whatever you want to call them. I don't want to.
The first time I ever saw Mario Ramil was a viral video.
The Cuban Doctor.
The
First time I ever saw
that
him.
went viral. That viral wasn't even a thing then.
Right. First time I ever saw him. And I remember I shared that video. And I remember my caption to the word. It said, "I don't know who this guy is, but he's fucking hilarious. Yeah. But this is hilarious." I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but this is fucking hilarious. When I remember when those kind of videos started coming out and they started calling themselves comedians, in my mind, because I'm so protective of my craft, in my mind, I said, well, you're a comedic actor. Mm-hmm. You're a comedy actor, but you're not a comedian. Mm-hmm. And then I learned throughout the years, that by definition, yes, they are comedians. Comedians are entertainers who entertain audiences with laughter. Okay. So by definition... Okay. TikTokers and viral people, they are comedians. They're not stand-up comedians, which is what I grew up with, my generation.
Right, but wouldn't you say though that like, okay, by definition, but you know, if you put content up that isn't great or funny, what's the worst? It's not going to get viral. It's not going to get views. Right. Whereas you, a performer, you go up in front of an audience, live and you bomb and you
learn your lesson.
you bomb.
You learn your lesson.
You know, it's funny we're talking about viral because this is like a total Miami thing. So you know, our listeners would appreciate. I remember one of like the most again, it went viral before things were viral, and this was like 10 years ago. It was these guys, a pair of nuts.
Right. Yamil.
The fuck me and D.
Yeah, Yamil. Gail? Oh my God.
It's not a little gay.
I thought that was hilarious. The lawyers had me rolling. Did you ever see the lawyers one?
Fuck me and Diaz.
Yes.
Call our secretary Maria.
Yeah. Oh my God. The Chonga chat.
Yes.
Chonga chat was fire, bro. I remember my wife's aunt at that time was living in Kohler, Wisconsin, which is the whitest of white people towns of all time.
Translucent.
Yeah, it really is. They're literally named after the Kohler, the sinks. It's not even like
the sinks.
The sinks. Those people founded a town. The
Kohler Plumbing Company.
They actually have a museum. They have a Kohler museum where it's all toilets and like literally. I'm not even exaggerating.
This is the learn section of the show, people.
Yeah. And I was learning. I remember I was like, wait, Kohler? Like, that's not a coincidence? Like, no, that's what named this fucking town was those sinks. And I'm like, the toilets. I'm like, oh, wow. And I remember showing my aunt, which is my wife's aunt, and I remember showing her Gail and showing her Chonga chat. I'm like, bro, and she, you know, being Hispanic herself, but living in white people town, she was like, oh my God, this is fucking hilarious. Yeah. Just hilarious. So, I mean, yeah. They're comedians, you know.
We had Yamil on the show, I think our first season, and he was great. And we talked to him about that I was like, dude, you guys went viral before this was even a thing.
He was on, they were actually featured in a split second on Tosh.0.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. I remember watching, and I was a huge fan of Tosh and Tosh.0, and I remember watching the show going, that's fucking Yamil. Like, they actually have he put the Gale was on Toss.0, and I'm like, oh my god, that's crazy.
And listeners, who if you haven't watched this
This is the most.
just
By the way,
YouTube-
this does not age well. This, if you're looking at it from the prism of 2022 politically correctness,
some things are maybe
this is not.
But
age
look
well.
up. It would be under a pair of nuts, right?
Yeah, pair of nuts. But just look up Gale. There's impossible that is more than him.
I love when he comes. ¿Qué tú haces? And he's like, un sándwich.
Ay, pero con esa mayonesa tan aburrida. It was the best. It's the I'm telling you. And there's some things where I go, this is how I know. Like, I have yet to crack the viral nut, by the way. I was just having this conversation with Mario on Monday. Because Mario is excellent at viral videos, at skits, at getting into character, into actors, and he dresses up and gets in wigs, and he's phenomenal at coming up with these things. And he always, and I wish you could have him on. He's great. He told me, he goes, man, I love picking your brain.
Actually, we've been wanting to have Mario on for since our first season.
He tells me, he goes, man, I love picking your brain about stand-up because it's so natural to you. Like, you have all the answers, where he would say, I get so like nervous, like I overthink. I told him, like, oh, you're overthinking stand-up. You're overthinking the approach, your writing or whatever. He's like, how do you write? I'm like, how do I? Like, I had to stop and think about it because to me it's natural. So I don't. It's like asking a baseball pitcher, how do you throw a ball? You're like, I don't know. I just throw it. I don't know. How, like, you know what I mean? Do you release with the elbow first? You're like, I don't know. How do I do that? And you start thinking, like, how do I do? But I'm the opposite of Mario. So I've literally sat down at a table and be like, okay, I want to write a skit. What's the skit gonna be? And I can't come up with. I mean, I've sat there for hours, bro, and I'm like, I don't know how to do it. And Mario was like, yeah, I thought about the skit 20 minutes ago, and I put it up on the internet. I mean, what? How do you, like, I don't understand how you. Right. So our minds are wired differently in that sense,
styles, you're
right? But
different artists.
But I have yet to crack the viral nut. Like, I don't know how I had one video that kind of went viral, and it was the Nica video, the one about me talking about Nicaragua, where people always, every time they find out I'm from Nicaragua, they're like, oh, they start yelling out fritanga foods at me.
That's
right.
I remember that one.
So it kind of went viral, but it didn't go viral on the level of these guys, of Pair of Nuts, of Mario, of Mr. Red. Like, it didn't go viral on those guys' level. And I'm still trying to crack that nut, but I love watching those guys and going like, man, that was fucking hilarious. Yeah. I told Mario this all the time. There are times where I'm watching a video and of a guy playing the role of him and his wife, and I go, man, me and my wife have had that same conversation. I could have done that skit, but I didn't.
Because what I think that these guys do, and well, you do it too in your stand-up, is you pick up on the idiosyncrasies, I can never say that word, of life.
Idiosyncrasies.
Eso mismo. You know, especially like Miami,
right.
You know, because here, you know, it's our culture.
Right.
So you pick up on things that you don't even think about. Right. You don't even think about.
But that's the thing. So Mario gave me great advice the other day. He said, he's like, you're thinking too much about the joke first. Mm-hmm. Just think about the life part and then create that joke around it. Right. And I'm like, right. So actually, I think it was the other round. He said, you're thinking about, because I'm trying to like, okay, what Nika thing can I talk about? Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, you're already trying to get, he's like, just think about what's funny and then write around what's funny. So I'm the other way around. But again, it's just I always love watching these guys do these videos and me going like, man, that's super funny. Yeah. I wish I would have thought. Like, that's how you know, as a comedian, that's when you know something's funny. When you as a comedian go, fuck, I wish I would have thought of that. Yeah. I wish that's like a good one. Like when
singers are like, I wish I would have written that.
Yeah,
song.
I wish I would have written that song.
Pero the reason I actually really wanted to have you on is because, you know, we talk a lot about a lot of things here on the show, but I like, there's certain things I like to talk to people that know their shit. Right. And obviously, you being a professional comedian, you are the person to talk about this. You know, I feel that comedy, for the most part, has always been sort of like a last bastion of free speech. Right. Comedians historically have gotten away with things that nobody else can get away. Right. You know, the Carlins, Richard Pryor. And now that's something that like is a problem. I think Jerry Seinfeld said that he will not perform in college campuses. Correct. It's Joy Behar from The View. She does a lot of stand-up. Right. She won't do college campuses either. There's a lot of comedians that have either had to filter themselves or they won't perform in certain venues. Right. So or to certain people. So what's your take on that? So a
couple things. One, comedians have always had to fight for that last stand type of deal. Carlin got arrested for doing the 8 dirty words, or 7 dirty words. He got arrested for that. Lenny Bruce got arrested for performing his act in nightclubs, in jazz nightclubs, because there weren't even comedy nightclubs. There weren't even comedy clubs back then. So, when people go, oh, comedians have always been able to say things that other people can't. Yeah, but we fought for that. They fought for that. I don't want to even say we, because they fought for that. I guess I'm standing on the shoulders of those people who have said, of Richard Pryor, who said, I'm going to say the N-word, and I'm going to say that, and I'm not going to say the N-word, but I've said this, and I don't give a fuck what you do. And they have, at their cost of them, Richard Pryor lost out on movie roles because he refused to stop saying the N-word the way he did.
Right, but wouldn't you say, though, that the difference between those, right, and now is those things that you're talking about, although very relevant, those were words or things that were controversial, that we as a society agreed, like, okay, you shouldn't be saying the N-word, or you shouldn't be saying these other words. This is like other level. But the thing today is that people get offended by things that, like,
yeah,
really?
but go back and look at the Carlin's 7 dirty words. It's like, you can't say, one of them was fuck.
Right.
Like, that's absurd.
When was that? Like,
that was man, I'm really bad with dates, so I'm gonna cheat and Google this because I don't want let me see, Carlin's 7 dirty words. So 7 dirty words were, like, can I just, first of all, let me tell you the words. Ready? Shit. Piss. Fuck. Cunt. Cocksucker. Motherfucker. And tits.
you couldn't...
Like, those are the words you couldn't say on TV.
Well, this is getting a parental...
Right. Well, you know, beep, 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 beep. So that's what... So these are the words, but you couldn't say shit, piss, tits.
But you couldn't say those, not even in,
on TV. You couldn't say them anywhere.
On TV,
you couldn't say them in the club. You couldn't say them in the club.
In a comedy club?
Right. You could have said... So that was...
Because that was obscene.
Right. That was obscene. And so what you're talking about now is like, oh, but now it's getting ridiculous. It was ridiculous then.
Okay, I see
Except
your point.
that to us, to them, it was like, this is absurd. You can't say piss. Like, what? What are you talking about? Like, that to us. So it just, it's modified its way. I think now the what's happening now is that it's reached a pitch of hysteria because of the social media aspect, because there's more people to hear
give their opinions.
to give their opinions. So before, you didn't have an opinion about the 7 dirty words unless you were in a nightclub or were on TV where one of these words were said or whatever. And now it's like you don't have to be in a nightclub. You could be in North Dakota on a farm watching YouTube video of somebody and be like, I am offended at this. So there's different levels, but it's all based upon the same premise of like, you're offended because I said something you don't like.
Yeah, I think it's probably social media, because even like Dave Chappelle.
Right.
He got so much shit last year. Well, he's gotten shit for a while, but last year with his Netflix special, and I always like to put myself in somebody else's shoes and understand how that can be offensive and how maybe you feel triggered or attacked by certain things, because we've all had different paths and different lives, but they wanted to cancel him.
Right.
They wanted to cancel Dave Chappelle.
So here's my problem with that.
So it's like, where does poking fun at somebody or being controversial or thought-provoking in the name of comedy stop, and where does offending people begin?
So I will say this. First of all, I'll say just because I'm a stand-up comic doesn't mean that I don't believe in canceling comics, because people are like, oh, he's a comic, I'm a comic, I have to stand by my brother. Nah, bro, that guy, that's a dirty brother. I'm not okay with Bill Cosby drugging women. I'm not okay with that.
Well,
I'm not okay with that.
That didn't happen in the name of comedy. That because he was a stick.
Exactly my point. But to me, for example, of Dave Chappelle, if he's saying words that you don't like, and he said this 1,000 times, change the channel. You clicked on his special. You went to Netflix and clicked on his name on his face, and you clicked on that. If you don't like it, change the channel. Deej, you and I come from a generation where we're watching TV, and if we don't like something, we just change the channel. And to make it to today's youth, keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Just keep scrolling, bro. Like, you don't like what you're hearing, keep scrolling. There are a million things that I watch on Instagram, on YouTube, and on TikTok where I'm just like, I don't like this. This isn't my cut. This isn't my thing. Right. For whatever reason, whether it's too boring or it's too grotesque or whatever the thing is. There are things where I've watched where I'm like, ugh, that's too much. And but I just keep scrolling. I'm not going to sit there and write a formal complaint and be like, to whom it may concern.
And I also think that, you know when the line has been crossed. Like I remember some years ago, this was a while ago, when Michael Richards, I think it was at the Laugh Factory, he went on a tirade using the N-word.
Yeah.
It's like okay, I think we can all agree
Right.
that was uncalled for,
Right.
that was not funny, and that was messed up. Right. But then there's other things that are a lot more like subjective. That okay, maybe you don't find it funny, maybe it does. As you said, maybe it does make you feel uncomfortable, but maybe this is not for you.
It's just not for you, dude.
That's okay.
It's
that's
just
okay.
not for you. Like that's all I'm saying. Like you're literally letting words, whether it's Carlin's 7 dirty words or whatever word you want to use now, right? People use all these kinds of words to like, oh, you're woke. They use woke as a. I love it when people use woke as a negative. It's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Because that to me, it's the funniest thing. It's like, oh, okay, Mr. Woke. I'm like, so you rather than be asleep? Like I don't understand. Like isn't being woke a good thing? Like I don't understand. Like I'm literally showing you like we were asleep, but now we're waking up to know. Oh, the N-word is not a good word. Like what, you rather go back to sleep? I don't understand. Like I love when people use woke as a negative. Like they use it, they weaponize it as an insult.
They weaponize it. That's a perfect word.
And I laugh. I'm like, you're weaponizing woke? That's a good what? That's like you're like, ha! Look at you, be alert. Okay, yeah, that's crazy. But whatever words you want to use or whatever phrases that you find offensive or whatever, the whole thing of comedy is like one of the best things to come. And I'm not a fan of Jerry Seinfeld, but one of the best things to come from this whole politically correctness is people like Jerry Seinfeld who don't curse come into the defense of the craft. Mm-hmm. It's the equivalent of when in the late 80s, early 90s, when they had the trials they wanted to censor music because when the parental advisory sticker was created. Right.
Thank you, Tipper Gore.
Yeah. Before that, they were literally pulling people into Congress to talk about, Dee Snider was one of them and all these people.
Do you know what was the song that triggered the parental warning?
Which was?
So the parental explicit lyrics warning was by Tipper Gore, right? And it was a song by Prince from the Purple Rain soundtrack called Darling Nikki. Okay. There's a line that says, I met a girl named Nikki. You could tell she was a sex fiend. I met her in a hotel lobby masturbating with a magazine. Oh, okay. It was that line. Then now we're like, really?
Right. That's it. But here's the thing: the one who helped that cause out, as far as to not get music censored, as far as to be able to say whatever you want to say, the biggest helper to that was John Denver. Mm-hmm. Who did not curse in his music because
West Virginia.
Yeah, you needed somebody who did not curse to be able to stand up and say, you know what I mean? It's the equivalent of like Missy says this all the time. The biggest advocates that women can get in the feminism movement are men. Mm-hmm. And it's so weird because as a man, I always feel like this isn't my place. Like I have my beliefs, but I feel weird standing, you know what I mean? But John Denver standing up for dirty words and lyrics in music was a big deal, the biggest deal. Jerry Seinfeld saying, I'm not doing... And Jerry Seinfeld's comedy is not controversial at all. No. So for him to say, I'm not doing colleges anymore, he's taking a step... First of all, he doesn't need to do...
He doesn't need to do anything.
But the fact that he says, I don't want to do colleges anymore is the biggest thing for comics who do use offensive language.
Well, but let me ask you this, though. As a performer, because I see a lot of your work online, and I feel that you do a lot of your comedy, especially when you're doing like the cruises and all that, you kind of not pick in a bad way, but you pick from the audience. Right. Like, oh, you've been married. This is your roommate. What do you do for a living? Right. And you kind of go down that hole. And sometimes it's a little kind of uncomfortable.
Of course.
Have you ever gotten any like negative feedback from people that have been like, oh,
No, it's funny. So, okay, I'm going to answer that. That's a two-parter. But the short answer is the very few negative feedback that I've gotten has nothing to do with my material. Mm-hmm. I remember one lady stands out of my head where she said, oh my God, you were so funny. And I said, thank you. She goes, I didn't like the fact that you looked at your watch twice. That was very unprofessional. And that shit hit a chord with me because I immediately snapped back. This was after the show. Mm-hmm. I'm here trying to sell CDs. And I said, oh, are you a comedian? And she goes, excuse me? And I go, are you a professional comedian? Are you an entertainer, a performer? And she goes, no. I go, were you ever a performer? And she goes, no. I go, oh, so then you wouldn't know what professional is then.
What the standard?
What
that's
you
a
wouldn't know what
great.
professional. Yeah,
that's
how are you going to tell me?
That's a great clapback.
Yeah, how are you going to tell me, a professional entertainer, what it is like to be professional or what it's like to be unprofessional as an entertainer if you've never been an entertainer?
And I'm sure you also just glanced at your watch. I'm sure you didn't stop yourself.
Oh no,
like,
exactly.
You know,
no, I literally glanced, and here's what they don't, what she doesn't know. And she was like, "Well, that's not the response." And she was like offended that I came back with that, and I literally turned my body away from her, and I saw in the corner of my eye her husband grabbing her and like pulling her away, like, "All right, we're done here.
We're done, Karen."
We're moving on, and. I remember retelling the story to my wife or whatever, and I was like, what she and most people don't know is that when you work in a cruise line or when you work in a casino or when you're performing in venues that are not quote unquote comedy clubs, they want you to stick to a time. Mm-hmm. I need you to perform no more than X amount of time. Mm-hmm. So me looking at my watch to make sure that I do not go over is actually the most professional thing I can do. Right. That was me being professional because my boss, my employer, has told me by contract get off time because. And here's why here's what most people don't understand: when you work comedy clubs, when you work cruise lines, when you work casinos, when you work these venues, they want to provide you entertainment, but they want you to get the entertainment and they go back on the floor and spend that money.
Right.
So if I'm working a casino, which this was where the story took place. If I'm working a casino, the casino wants you to do a show from 8 to 8:30. Mm-hmm. They don't want you to do 8:30, 8:40, 8:50 because that's 20 less minutes that those 400 people are not spending money on their fucking slot machines. So they want you to like fucking entertain them and get them the fuck back onto the casino floor. And she doesn't understand that. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was like, this is fuck you. Don't ever tell me I'm because if not, like, listen, I've had so many day jobs. I've had office jobs. and I've been bad at all of them, bro. Right. The one thing that I'm not unprofessional in is my comedy.
Well, because you're passionate about it.
Yeah. The one thing. If I was as professional in any of those day jobs as I am about my stand-up, I would be a fucking VP with a fucking office with a corner office. So that's one. And two, what the question was, do you ever have people ever complain about me?
Right.
So my comedy is very okay. So the comedy that you guys watch on the reels, right? Mm-hmm. So if you go to nerysaenz.com, aka whatwashisname.com, and you go to my social media, I post stand-up clips of me doing crowd work. Mm-hmm. The reason I do that is by design. I don't only do crowd work. In fact, the least that I do is crowd work. Mm-hmm. I do crowd work. If I'm doing a 30-minute set, I'll do crowd work the last 5 minutes of the show. Mm-hmm. I'm giving you 25 minutes of material, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes of crowd work. If that, because sometimes audiences are not good and they don't give you...
There's nothing for you to work with.
There's nothing for you to work with, or nothing for me personally to work with, or I didn't find anything, so I move on. But I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Let's say it's a really good crowd, I'll give you 7 minutes. But I still gave you the first 25, right? And I only post, and people don't know that about me. Because people that have only seen me on social media, they go, oh yeah, you're the crowd work guy. I'm like, okay. But I'm not. But I get it because I'm not gonna post my material because I don't want you to go to the show and then see the same material that you saw and be like, oh, we already fucking saw this joke.
Yeah.
So I do it by design.
Okay.
And then so for the
most, you heard that here, people.
Yeah. So and then for the most part, this is the reason why I'm able to get away with some of the shit that I say on stage, right, to an audience member, because I have gone for 25 minutes making fun of myself, my wife, and my kids. Mm-hmm. If I make fun of you for 5 minutes. You as an audience member already okay. This is kind of like pulling back the curtain as far as how the sausage gets made. If you as an audience member see somebody make fun of themselves for 25 minutes, their wife, their kids, and that's all I do for 25 minutes is talk about me, my wife, and kids, and I make fun of myself, and you're laughing at that, and then I start talking to you, and in reality, all I'm doing is asking questions. If you look at the videos, dissect it. All I do is ask questions, and then I react to the answers that they
just
give
happen
me.
to be hilarious.
They give me the answers. The one I posted today or yesterday was the guy telling me that he remarried the same woman twice. I'm like, you remarried the same woman twice? Like, he's giving me if he would have just said, yeah, we've been married for 3 years, I had nothing. Yeah. You're giving me the information, man. I'm not just going up. So anyways, So if I make fun of myself for 25 minutes and then I make fun of you for the last 4 or 5 minutes, you already like me because you're like, oh, this guy's all right. He's already made fun of himself for that. So no, I've never gotten, at least to my attention, to my face, nobody's ever come up to me saying like that was wrong. You shouldn't have made that joke. You shouldn't have done it. I've never gotten.
And you've never felt with like today's day and age that you need to filter yourself in any way?
No, the only filtering that I do is based upon who's hiring me, and that's because. As much as I am an artist, and I believe myself to be an artist, as much as I am an artist, I am also an artist that is employed by somebody. So if I'm on a cruise ship and they tell me this time today you're doing a show from 8 to 8:30 and it's a PG show, it's a family show, so there's no cursing, that's the only time that I have felt, okay, well, I'm going to quote unquote censor myself, but my censoring is understood that I went into this on the show understanding that is that, and a lot of comics will tell you I'll never work cruise ships because I don't want to have to work clean, and I go, okay, but we're a product, we are entertainers and we are artists, but we are also our own product, and if you don't want to sell your product, that's cool. I would like to sell my product. I am my own.
Everybody has to make that compromise at one point or another.
But to me, it's not a compromise. To me, it's like that's what I'm saying.
It's
like,
a fine tuning.
So to me, it's like, okay, I want the most people to hear. And so Anjelah Johnson, and I know she's gonna be my soda, the last Coca-Cola in the desert. To me, so Anjelah Johnson does a completely clean show. When I open for her, which I will be opening for her this weekend and next weekend, she requests any opener, not just me, any opener to be no cursing because she doesn't want that as part of her show. Her brand is a PG brand. And I will say this, the material that I'm proudest of has come from working with Anjelah and me forcing myself to not be able to do other jokes that I normally would do because I feel as if it's not clean enough for her show, and it's forced myself to write and think of stories that I hadn't thought of before.
Maybe think outside the box
Correct.
a little bit.
And I thought completely outside my comfort zone. And it's the product. I mean, I'm putting together now my next album, and that hour I'm really proud of, specifically a 40-minute chunk where I talk about my heritage, which I've never done on stage before. And I never did it until I worked with Anjelah Johnson. So that to me was very important because now I'm talking about my heritage. I used to just say I'm from Miami.
Right.
I never used the word Hispanic. I never used the word Latino. I'm from Miami. You see me. I don't have to force feed you the fact that I'm Latino, right? And now working with Anjelah got me last year. I started working with Anjelah last year, and it got me to like start talking about not just being Hispanic or Latino, but being specifically from Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And that material and
That's your heritage.
And how I came to this country, how I was illegal when I came to this country, and how I got smuggled in, and why I got smuggled in, and all this story. Now again,
things people can relate to.
Some of the most personal stuff I've ever talked about on stage is I owe it to the fact that I had to come up with clean material that I had not done before. So I don't think that's a compromise. I think that's a challenge.
Well, I mean, it's the evolution of an artist,
Correct.
right?
Right.
You know, all artists, no matter what your medium is, you evolve. You know, well, I mean, we all evolve, but you evolve your craft.
Correct.
And you push yourself. That's awesome. That's good to hear. Who are as we wrap up, who are some of your favorite comedians?
My favorite comedian, I think, of all time would probably be Eddie. Of current doing stand-up is Bill Burr. I think that guy's untouchable. I think that guy, and I'm not one of those guys where it's like, if I like you, no matter what you do, I'm gonna, you know what I mean? Like, our friend Missy's like that, where she's like, I'm a huge fan of Melissa McCarthy. I'm like, yeah, but she's done some shit movies, and Missy would not admit that. Missy has purchased every single one of her movies, even the bad ones, and she would not say that's a bad movie. I'm a huge fan of The Rock, but I've never watched Doom. I think fucking Baywatch was a piece of shit. Like so none of these movies, I didn't even know if I could curse. So I think Baywatch is a piece of crap. Bill Burr had one special where I was like, I didn't like this one, right? But when you've done 8-9 specials and one of them isn't good and the rest of them are immaculate and they just keep getting better and better, in my opinion, they keep getting better and better. Bill Burr's, I think, easily hands down the best comedian right now.
Good. So tell our audience.
Brian Regan. Go watch Brian Regan, man. Oh, so good.
You know who I never got, and again, I understand that comedy is subjective.
Yeah, very.
I never got Dane Cook.
So Dane Cook was,
And obviously, I'm in the minority
No.
because he used to sell Madison
No,
Square
no,
Garden.
no.
Like,
Right now, but it's very popular to not like Dane Cook anymore. When Dane Cook became popular, when he started becoming popular, I remember that's when I started doing stand-up 19 years ago. And I remember introducing my friends to Dane Cook. They had never heard of him. Bro, you got to check out this guy. Check out this video. He's super funny and blah, 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 and stuff there. Because I was the target demographic. I was the college kid. I was 22 years old. I was a college kid that liked a lot of physicality, that liked to watch him do his. And then the more I got into stand-up, and again, this is nothing against Dane. I'm just not a fan of his anymore, not a fan of his style. I noticed his style is not really, his style is more of a physical, and B, he just kind of repeats the punchline over and over again until it becomes funny.
Right.
So it's like Cement Truck 2000.
Eventually,
CT 2000. Cement Truck 2000. And it's like, he just, all you're doing is repeating the same thing just in different ways, and people start laughing, right?
Yeah.
Again, not knocking him, I'm just saying I started noticing the pattern. I go, oh, and I started gravitating towards people who, you know what I mean? When I first started doing stand-up, I was very physical because that was my kind of like go-to. It was a fat guy jiggling, a fat guy moving. It was a fat guy on stage. Oh, look at me, and one of my jokes I remember was like, oh, fat guys at parties, we don't dance. Right? You may see a fat guy and you think he's dancing, but he's just shimmying his way to the food.
Right.
And I would do the act out, and then literally I would write down on my notepad, act out. And then I started noticing after a year and a half, I started noticing all my punchlines were in parentheses, act out, act out, act out. And then I said to myself, can I make people laugh without jiggling, without shimmying, can I make people laugh? And then I started doing like, let's just stand still and see if this joke works without you doing the physicality. Right. And then that's how I progressed really, where it became my words and writing, whatever. But Dane Cook, I get it, man. I'm not a fan of Chris Rock. And this has nothing to do with Will Smith. It had nothing to do with the fact that I met Will Smith and hung out with Will Smith.
Oh, wow.
I had nothing to do with that. I don't think Chris Rock is a funny stand-up. Nothing personal against him. I've never met him. I think his brother Tony is way funnier.
But that's a great thing about comedy, right? You know, that it's very subjective. Look, Ish and I are always arguing. I was really into some years ago, like maybe you think they're crap. I was really into The Lonely Island.
I've never seen their stuff though.
I my gosh, I was so into it. Yeah. And so I have all their I have two of their albums, and Ishmael thinks they're like obnoxious, but that's a great thing about comedy. It's great. It's you know. Let me ask you this.
I think Cat Williams is obnoxious, but people love him.
I love the Kings of Comedy.
Okay, of course.
I love them. I love them.
Yeah.
I love them.
Who's your favorite of the Kings?
I don't know.
Cedric is mine. By
Cedric
far,
the Entertainer?
Cedric is my fine.
Yeah.
No, the other Cedric. Yeah, Cedric the Entertainer.
You know that other Cedric.
Yeah, I go Cedric and you go Cedric the Entertainer? I'm like, no. Cedric the Accountant.
Cedric the Gardener. Let me ask you this, though, as we wrap up. Do you think that funny is something you're born with, or is it something that you can train yourself? Or it's a natural talent that you're born with, but like all natural talent, you need to work on your talent. My brother is an amazing, phenomenal artist. He could draw, he could paint, he could do all that really well. However, he will sit here and tell you it could be taught because you have to practice. And some people start off, this is my brother's words, some people start off at a higher starting point. So meaning that him and I, when we first picked up a pencil, he started off being able to naturally draw better than I would. But he's also had to put his 10,000 hours worth of work into it. Where I saw crap, where I picked up a pencil and I saw crap, I didn't want to do those 10,000 hours. So maybe I had to do 15,000 hours because I had to work 5,000 hours just to get to his starting point. Right. But you can still work on it. Funny is absolutely something, it is a natural talent that you're born with. But like any talent, you have to work on it to refine that ability. Right. Like it's you know what I mean. It becomes that ability of like, okay, this is. Which, by the way, we already have your next project. We'll talk about it in depth after, but it's gonna be like a side gig with you and my mom because you know my mom's name is Nery.
Oh,
so the show is called Writing Cards with Nery Squared.
I love it. I love it. I met a guy whose mom was named Nery, and he had a huge tattoo on his shoulder, and it said Nery, and it was like me at 3 or 4 years of me doing stand up, and he was at the Improv. He goes, "Look, I have your name tattooed on me." I was like, "Oh," and I took a picture or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was like the funniest thing.
Yeah.
I've only met female Nerys, by the way.
Yeah.
I've only met. There was one time I was in traffic court, and they called Nery no sé qué, and they said Mr. Nery no sé qué, and I'm like, "Do you mean Nery Saenz?" And they're like, "No, Nery no sé qué." Mr. Nery, and I'm like, and I got so excited. I'm like, I'm gonna get to see another male Nery. Didn't show up.
Oh, did he show
He
up?
didn't show up. I was like, son
he didn't
of
show
a
the
bitch.
other
He
Nery
didn't show
guy.
the other
Yeah, no,
male Nery.
it's gonna be called Writing Cards with Nery because my mom's like a very conservative, very non-serious person, but she,
Right.
I mean, very serious.
Right,
I mean,
right.
but she's the one that she'll say something totally like in a serious tone, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Because es un disparate,
mom.
right? And then, like, for example, my mom loves the car show. And like she'll be like, "Oh, I love the new style," and I'm like, "What? Like, how do you know this?"
Yeah.
So like I was telling your wife the other day, I'm like, I just want to like hook her up with your Nery, and like they could go to the car show, and you'll know how to work around.
Yeah, of
her,
course,
and just have a camera
yeah.
and see what happens. And it's gonna be called Writing Cards with Nery Square.
My mom is like that too. My mom is not like super serious, but she's definitely not where I get my sense of humor comes from my dad. But my mom's not super serious either. But she'll say the funniest things in natural conversation. Where I remember one time we were talking about Alexis Arguello. Alexis Arguello is a former world champion boxer. He was born in Nicaragua. He is like the most famous Nicaraguan person of all time, right? He later on in life became a mayor of Nicaragua, and then he was murdered. He was shot, right? And I remember saying this to my mom, like, "Oh yeah, he died." And my mom was like, "He died? Oh yeah." And my mom was like, "Oh yeah, he died of natural causes." And I was like, "Natural causes, Mom? He got shot." And my mom, never being one to be wrong, goes, "Of course, if you get shot, it's only natural that you die." and I could not stop laughing at that. I was like,
she's not wrong.
She's not wrong. She's not wrong. I'm like, this is hilarious. I'm like, and then so I'm laughing. My brother's laughing, and my mom's like, "What's so funny?" Like, she doesn't understand what's so funny. And I'm like,
My mom speaks her thoughts.
Right.
So she doesn't have a filter for like her dumb comments. No. So my mom would be the type that like, this is like one of her greatest hits. Like, I bought some shoes, and I took out a shoe from the bag. Right. And I go, "Look, Mom, look at the shoe I bought." And she's like, "Oh my God, I love it. It's so nice. Did you get the other one?" Or like, I'll never forget that one time my dad, back in the day, my dad's boss came to the house for dinner, and our dog was like all over my dad's boss's wife, and my mom's like, "Mira, es que ella sabe que tú tienes pesta perro porque tienes perro en la casa." Wow. So ella lo sabe, which she meant to say that dogs can pick up on that.
No,
right? But no, and then I'm like, "Mom."
Mom. Never change, Mom. You're beautiful.
So
you're
she
amazing.
says those things that it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, Writing Cards with Nery Square. We're gonna work out the details later. So anyway, we reached our final soda time, and I want to give out a little shout out this week to something that I saw, and we here with the final sodas, we always like to. Well, sometimes they're gasless sodas, and they're shit. But I want to give a little shout out this year to somebody passed away this year. Jim Redman. So in 1992, in the Barcelona Olympics, and listeners, you could look this up in YouTube, there was a runner for the United States, Derek Redman, who, when he was finishing the 400-meter final or semifinal at the Olympics, I think he tore something. He tore something, and he was limping. And his dad,
he actually stopped the run. He actually stopped running,
and his dad came.
And jumped the fence.
Yes, and the security was trying to hold him.
Yeah,
and I'm glad you've seen the video, so it's
course.
like what I'm talking about.
Most inspirational.
His dad came, and I mean, listeners, like, look it up, and helped him finish.
He literally picked up his son.
Yeah,
put his arm over his shoulder, and he had him finish the race with his dad.
Yeah,
and he's crying. This is a grown man crying, both of physical pain, because when you blow out your hamstring but also because it's a dream. His Olympic dream come to an end, and his dad is like, "You're gonna finish this race."
Yeah. It's
beautiful.
It's a remarkable video. Yeah. And the guy passed away this week, so I just wanted to give a little shout out to that, because it's one of those, like, newsworthy or things that happen that sort of remind you of the humanity in people that we nowadays need to do. So that's my last soda. So you said you knew you were going to give your last soda to...
Yeah, Anjelah Johnson is my last soda, because I'm so, like, I get emotional thinking about what type of person that she is, right? Because she's a professional comedian, and most of you guys know her from doing Banquiqui and doing the nail salon lady and doing whatever. But she is so genuine as a human being. Like I worked with her last year, and she told me, Nery, that's hilarious. You should. And then she would watch my set, and then give me, like comics, we do this all the time when we watch each other's set, and we're like, oh man, and then we start giving each other punchlines, or what we call each other tags, like, hey, here, tag it with this, and do blah 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 blah. And Anjelah did, and Anjela's a fucking rock star, man. Like her people are like, she did a show in Miami that she had to cancel, and she rescheduled 6 months later, and people came to that show, and they're like, oh, I had tickets, I live in Seattle, and I bought tickets to go to Miami. I live in Nebraska, and I can't take it to Miami. And then when she canceled, because she canceled the week of, she goes, they did it again 6 months later. So she has rabid fans that are amazing fans.
Oh, yeah, if you're willing to come from Seattle to Miami.
Fan. Mind you, I did a show in Miami, and I have friends in Fort Lauderdale who go like, oh, bro, let me know when you're in Fort Lauderdale. So imagínate. So she's a rock star in the comedy community. She is on tour right now doing theaters with thousands of people, and then she's selling out all over, right? But the fact that she watches her openers, not to be critical, not to be judgmental, but to help, to be like, oh, or not even to be like, I'm better than you. It's to be like, oh my God, I'm a comic, you're a comic, we're friends, we're a brotherhood, we're a fraternity,
feed off each other.
Feed off each other. And her genuine interest in wanting to help people and wanting to help, she was like, hey, what? So last time I worked with her was in January in Miami, and she goes, hey, I'm doing a tour later this year. Let me know your availability. And I sent her my dates, and then she was like, well, do you want to go on tour with me on October 7th, October 8th, October 10th, October 11th? And she just sent me this thing. And I was like, absolutely. And when I say on tour, like, I've never, aside from the cruise lines, right, because that's a gig, I've never had another headliner say to me, hey, I want you to come open for me. I'm going to pay for everything. You're not worrying about anything. And I've had other comics that I'm friends with, and I'm really good friends with, help me out and be like, hey, you want to come work for me? You pay for your own airline, and you pay for your own hotel, but I'll get you to open for me, and then I sell my T-shirts and stuff like that, whatever. But Anjelah's been like other level, man. Like, it just the niceness of this woman is amazing to me. So I appreciate her, and being somebody who's done comedy now for 19 years, that I promise you, those individuals are few and far in between.
Right.
Like, they're not. Right. Yeah. Like, she already quote unquote made it. She doesn't need to help
other people,
comics.
But here she is.
And it's not just me. It's like, so the reason I didn't get the entire tour is because she's helping 4 or 5 other comics.
Right. She's giving them a shot.
She's giving them openings
on her platform.
So, you know,
that's awesome.
I love her.
Congrats for you.
Fantastic.
You know,
yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
So I'll be in South Carolina.
Well, actually, I was going to tell you. Plug in. Tell us where we could find you. Your Instagram. Give us all that. Give us
my social media. My social media is everything is at Nery Saenz. Nobody remembers how to spell that. So if you go to whatwashisname.com, that's my actual website. From that, you could go to all my social media. I'm trying to go my Instagram specifically because I feel like that's my strong suit. I have a TikTok, but I repost my reels onto Instagram, onto TikTok, and anybody who's ever seen any one of my shows knows that I'm not good on Twitter because I need more than 300 characters. But I post here and there, whatever. So my Instagram is what I'm trying to grow. I'm be on tour the day that this comes out, Friday. Tomorrow. So tomorrow I'll be in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. I'll be in Charlotte.
So, dude, we're talking to you the day before you go to...
The day before, a few hours before. Now
we're honored.
Yes. So Charleston, South Carolina tomorrow, or today, day of Friday the 7th. Then Charlotte, North Carolina, the 8th. Then the following week, I'm going to be in Atlanta, Georgia. Then I'm going to be in Nebraska. And then I forget where else. But yeah, it's just, I'm
awesome.
I'm very happy about what's happening right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Good for you.
Thank you.
Oh, you deserve it. You've been doing this for a while. And, you know, you're good.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for a while.
You know,
so
I've
actually paid your dues.
This is how great Anjelah is. I've actually had headliners, and I won't mention names because this doesn't matter, but I've actually had headliners go, you're too funny. I can't take you with me. I've actually had that. Yeah. Where I never understood that promise because to me, iron sharpens iron.
Right.
To me, if I want to be better, I play with, like, Michael Jordan used to invite the best players in the offseason. He used to invite the best players in the NBA to go practice with them, to go play with them, because that's how you get better.
Right.
But some comics are
And
like,
I think people will probably think of the show as a totality, because if
Correct.
they cracked up with you and then
Correct.
they laugh with the headliner, you know, it's like they're gonna like the whole
Right.
show. Whereas if you bombed, it's like, oh, you know
Right.
that opener, you know.
and I loved the fact that Anjelah was like, "You're hilarious. What are you doing this summer or whatever?"
Oh, that's awesome.
Like that.
That's
She
awesome.
like that. That's how great she is. That she doesn't feel threatened. There's no
Right.
like. There's no
Right.
competition. It's like we are a brotherhood. We are a community. Let's
Nice.
go up together.
Nice. Good. So, Oye, thank you so much.
Thank you, bro.
Congratulations on the weight loss. Congratulations on your career.
I'm not done yet.
Well, you know, it's a process. It's a progress. It's a work in progress. Anyway, also with your podcast, remember that Pero Let Me Tell You is part of the Geek Bro Network, and Nery does, I don't even know how many podcasts.
So look, I have What's Up, Bro, which is the original. I've been doing that for over 10 years, 11 years now, coming up on. Then I have the Mount Geekmore podcast. We've been doing that for 5 years. We took most of this year off, but we'll be back. Then we have Kick Flicks, which is a martial arts movie podcast. And now I'm about to launch Movie Bros podcast, which is us reviewing any and all type of movies, but that's still going to be under the Woo Bro umbrella. So if you want to listen to those episodes, they're going to be under What's Up, Bro. So just check that out.
Okay, yeah.
Everything's on the website.
Yeah, everything's on the website. So
name.com.
anyway, Oye, so thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me, bro. Love
Everybody, you know, we hope you listen, laughed, and learned. And as always, remember to grab your pastelito, your croqueta, and your cafecito.
And your
thank you
queso
for-
frito.
And your queso frito.
Bro,
You can't
what's
forget
up?
your queso frito. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Gracias.
Okay, bye.
Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.
Hi, I'm Eddie,
And I'm Megan.
and we are the hosts of Kill the Bottle podcast, where guess what we do? We kill bottles, we talk to guests, we talk about food, wine, travel, amazing guests like country singer Martina McBride.
Director Paul Feig.
Ooh, that's right, Paul Feig. Broken Shaker co-founder Gabe Horta.
Comedian Brad Williams.
Enrico Suave. Gerardo Mejia.
Do not forget Craig Kilborn.
I can never forget Craig Kilborn because you have the biggest crush on Craig Kilborn, Megan. And if you want to find
Me
out how
too.
badly she has it, please listen to the episode of Craig Kilborn. We even have creators of TV shows like Dave Knoll, who created Chopped. One of my favorites.
Richard Blaze.
Hello,
The chef.
Chef
He's been on a
Blaze.
million shows.
And his wavy hair. So if you want all of these, come on over to Kill the Bottle Podcast, rate, review, wherever you get your freshly squeezed podcast.